From KSMQ in southern Minnesota, this is Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
I'm interested in exploring different ways of looking at artwork. It's not what you see that is important to me, it's how you see it. The artwork means nothing if the audience did not interact with it. The title, Melting Pot, it's all different religions come to America and form America, and then the second melting pot happens. And then I was here during September 11, and it affected me a lot because I did not apply for the green card. So I couldn't stay, I have to go back to Malaysia and come back in again. And you can see the frame doesn't have a bottom, so it means it's continued. Since I was young, like about 7 years old, I remember my elder brother won a national competition for painting, and he was just 1 year older than me, and he got a lot of attentions. Since then I started to think that art is great, and I want to do art too. I want to get a lot of attention. My parents are so afraid that I might go into fine art. They don't want to encourage me to make it into a career, so my mom would throw away some of my artwork, pretty much want me to find an area that I can find, a study that I can find a job. One of the areas that they encourage me to explore is computer science. Anyone who has worked with the multiple screen will know that quite often when they work on a project, they open two separate windows side by side on two separate screens. Even though the information is different, but they're related. So that's what I'm trying to present in the art form, trying to relate the scientific elements back into art form where we don't need to paint one scene in one canvas. We can paint it in multiple canvases and depict the differences and variations of what art can be. I came here in 1996 to study at St. Cloud State University for the computer science degree. I'm glad that I went through that experience in computer science. It pretty much shaped who I am and how I do my work now. When I was in computer science, I felt something, part of me is dying, not being able to express visually. And I went back to school for fine art. And it's when I went to grad school where I started to learn what fine art is. And I started to love it because for the first time, I understand myself more. I remember coming to America where I never seen snow before. I was very excited when I see snow, beautiful snow. But one thing I hate, just like everyone else, is when I slip on ice and I fell and bleed on my head. So since then, ice for me is something that I glance just so that I don't fall. I don't look at ice. Ice is always dirty. So when I projected this, it really immediately impacted me. This is a China image that I took, and I projected on ice out in the winter, cold winter. You've seen a lot of those slippery ice that everyone hates. So this is the image taken from that. It's beautiful when you have a chance to look at them. They're absolutely gorgeous because the image sits on different layers on the ice, and it reflects differently. This is a TV mounted on a table, and when you wear these glasses, all these images turn into 3D. You almost look like you're looking at ice. My idea is to reflect what I experience, what I see, and allow people to look at them. I come across a lot of artist statements and a lot of artwork where artists always talk about themselves. So it seems like they know a lot about themselves in order to produce artwork. So I thought, oh, naturally I need to know myself more, so I started digging into who I am. I am the fourth generation of Hokkien culture in Malaysia. All my parents, my grandfather and ancestor are all from this small little town called Nan An. I went to China, but one thing I found is throughout the experience, going back to the hometown, I don't see any reference in terms of similar culture, like what I was grew up in Malaysia. I think mainly because the communists erased all the culture in China. So there's a town that most likely will be where my ancestors come from, but there's a lot of people by the last name of Ma. I really don't know what to do at that time, but this cab driver found out that I was there to find my ancestor, got pretty excited and dropped me at a house of a person by the name of Ma, last name with Ma too. And I went into this house, and there was this lady holding a baby and pretty much yelled at me, like, you know, who am I and what am I trying to do? But this cab driver kept asking me to go in there. So I ended up making connection with this family, and within 5 minutes I was sitting with 15 people by the name of, with the same last name, Ma. I never anticipate to meet anyone, I just want to look at the hometown. But this experience forced me to acknowledge that they are my family, but at the same time, they're not. Like, I don't know how to explain it. This particular work is exploring the language again, to see how sometimes it's just not the vocabulary that I'm struggling, it's the sentence structures. In Malay language, the word come first is like you'll say pencil my instead of my pencil. So there are certain sentence structure that different from the English, and this particular piece trying to exhibit that idea of how language, you know, are difficult for me. Where I grew up, Malaysia, my parents will tell me that I'm pure breed from this place. When I came to America, things changed. For the first time, I felt like I'm the other. Any restaurant I go to, people look at me, especially with a long-haired Asian guy. The first week I arrived, I went to a restaurant. My professor brought me there so that we are asked to do it because we have to experience the American culture. It was 11 o'clock at night. There was two men with big arm full of tattoo sitting right across our table, and they thought that I'm from Vietnam. They were using a lot of very bad language and saying that I am a disgrace to this country and I should leave this country and a lot of other stuff. At the end of the meal, at the end of the meal, the restaurant, it turns out good that those guys ended up apologizing to both me and my professor. They said that they were drunk and they went to war in Vietnam, so they cannot eliminate seeing any faces that look like Vietnamese. The idea is I'm always see myself as not pure anymore because nobody knows who I am. They always think that I'm from some other country. And I was once asked, where do I think is home? And I cannot answer that. The first piece of work is called Eastern versus Western. And it's an installation artwork of all the images from Malaysia, China, and United States. This is just one side of the installation. The installation consists of two sides. This is the left image, and this is the right part of the images. And this, if you look carefully, most of the images in here is United States. You have, this is Devil Tower, Hollywood, Mall of America, places that I've been to, places that I know. And this particular part is all the Eastern culture, and everything that I know of Eastern culture is China landscape and Chinese culture in Malaysia. Both culture and combine it in the middle, because Malaysia is a hybrid country. I think America are always a good place for experimenting art. That's why I decided to stay here. It's a place where different art can be celebrated in a different way. You don't have to fulfill the whole entire mass. There's not one audience. In majority of the country, like China, there's only one audience. So the art is always catered for that kind of audience. And in America, you can do popular art, or you can do experimental art or underground art. You have your own audience no matter what you do. And the country is big enough that I think it can develop a lot of interesting work, and a lot of people are very creative here. I came across a lot of articles about Eastern culture versus Western culture. A conversation between two persons. They will ask one question: where is your future? Is it in front of you or behind you? And the Western culture person immediately says that, of course, it's right in front of me, because that's where I'm heading, it's the direction that I'm going, so it is my future, and my past is behind. And the Eastern culture person said that the future is behind because it's blind. What you can see is your past history, and therefore your future is right, at the back. So that's how I sometimes I utilize that in my artwork. I'm more on the Eastern side. I always think of my life as the sun is right behind me, where my future is. So when the sun hits me and it casts a shadow right in front of me, I'm walking blindly backward, and I'm walking towards the sun, but still I don't see the obstacle. I might fall, but I still know which direction I'm going, but I cannot use my eye because it's blind. That's how I see my future. My goal of my artwork, hope that it will constantly be a good adventure for me. And I see the future is a blank slate, I don't want to predict it, then it's not adventure anymore. So artwork is like an adventure for me. So I want to create something that can constantly feel me to be alive.
Ready when you are. He was tall and breezy with his long hair down, but he gets a little hazy when I think of him now. My first lover, my first lover. He was always talking, trying to bring me down, but I was not waiting for a white wedding gown from my first lover. My first lover. Well, I do not remember any going wrong, just a record playing that old Steve Miller song, Quicksilver Girl. Quicksilver Girl had a surfer after calling it quits. I do not remember any going wrong, just a record playing that old Steve Miller song, Quicksilver Girl. Well, I do not remember any fates or fits, just a shaky morning after calling it quits. And I don't remember any going wrong, just a record playing that old Steve Miller song, Quicksilver Girl. Quicksilver Girl. Quicksilver Girl. And she's free. Very nice.
The Hormel Historic Home. The family said Hormel, but when they became a national brand, they went to Hormel in all the national advertising. So the company is Hormel, but the family was Hormel. George A. Hormel was born in 1860. He went to Chicago and worked in the meatpacking industry. He did that for a couple of years, and then he found a job buying hides for a hide dealer in Des Moines, and would travel in his little sales region. And one of the cities that he went to on his route was Austin. In 1887, there was a huge fire in downtown Austin. One of the buildings that burned to the ground was a butcher shop. It was a father-son butcher shop. So the next time George was in town, the father said, you know, I'm too old to rebuild, but why don't you go into business with my son? And that's what he did. In 1887, he went into business with Anton Frederick. And that lasted for a couple of years, and then George bought him out. In February of 1892, he got married. His wife was Lillian Gleason, and they had one son, Jay. So they lived in just a rented house here in Austin for the first 10 years or so of the business. By 1901, they were feeling a little more settled, and so the house came up for sale. They hired an architect out of the cities to do a major remodel. Their son Jay was about 8 years old at that time, and they lived here until 1927. George was retiring from his role as CEO. His son was taking over, and they were going to move to California. Jay didn't want to take over the property, so they donated it to be the YWCA. Austin already had a YWCA organization established. This way they were able to rent out the bedrooms upstairs. It would be a reputable place for a young woman to stay if she was going to college or a nurse at the hospital or working in an office. So it did have some business upside for old George. In the early 90s, we started to have some trouble qualifying with national YWCA standards. They wanted us to have a gym or a pool, and so we decided to become the Hormel Historic Home instead of being a Y. Everything you see is either period or a reproduction. Some things had survived a long time, like paintings. Most of the woodwork had survived, so we were able to use those and restore them and put them back. So a lot of volunteers, a lot of hours, a lot of dollars, and it looks great. This is the entry hall. If you built a nice home from scratch, you were probably planning on a home funeral, so they made the doors wide enough for caskets. Those are original. And then the woodwork in here is curly birch. So sometimes people say, oh, there was no expense spared in building the house. George tended to just take everything he had and put it back in the business. Another plant, another 100 people employed, that kind of thing. This is a house where there was expenses spared. That's kind of an indication that this house was built by a successful man who had not grown up with a lot of money. This is the very nice, but also very functional and practical house. The library would have been the room that the men went to after dinner to smoke cigars and so forth. This is the one room where we have the photo of what it actually looked like when the Hormels lived here. We've tried to recreate as much as possible, you know, find a table like the table and a chair like the chair. The fireplace there is one of the remodel features that the Hormels added. The original floor plan would have been just a straight wall, and so they bumped out, added the tiled area, the window seats, the leaded glass windows, and of course the custom, very, very custom brickwork to the fireplace. So this is the dining room, and it's probably one of the more distinctive rooms because of the honeycomb ceiling. This tiled area was another add-on that they did. The kitchen had the most updates. The windows are the old style windows with the weights, so that's all been preserved. Our long-range plan is to restore this back to period as well. These are kind of distinctive countertops. They're actually zinc. They look like stainless steel, but they were installed before that was even invented. Marble looked prettier as a countertop, but marble, if you drop the dishes on it, the dishes would break. Well, this wouldn't break, especially if you had a towel or something on it. The dishes wouldn't break from the impact. Just knowing the personalities, I would have guessed that they had like a household diary, but none of that got passed down to us. Maybe it'll turn up, or maybe somebody's got it in their attic. So this is the atrium. When the Hormels lived here, this was the back porch. So it was an open air place. We converted it to connect with the old carriage house. And so now it is the bridge between the old 1871 home and our new banquet hall and commercial kitchen. One distinctive feature is the split staircase, and then the south level is higher than the north level. And that had meaning at that time. The master of the house was on the north level, so he was elevated higher than the children's wing. We had steam heat for a number of years, and now it's hot water heat, but the radiators remain. Just about all the rooms have closets, which is pretty unusual for that era. This is the master bedroom. When George and Lillian lived here, it was actually the whole south end of the house was their great big bedroom. So that wall was not there. It was added at some time when it became a Y to kind of split things up. The rug in here is actually a family piece purchased in France and had shipped back to Minnesota, probably in the 40s. That's one of the family heirlooms. The vase was given to a Hormel executive by George and Lillian, and he in turn donated it back to us so we could have a family piece. When the Hormels first moved in, it was still gas light, and then it would have been about 1904 or 1905 that electricity came down this street. George was on the utility board, so they were probably one of the first houses in town that got electric. We do actually have compact fluorescents all over the place, even in our 100-year-old light fixtures, and they work just fine. The sitting room, it was part of the whole south end, one big room, and so there's a little fireplace. Again, very, very detailed brickwork, custom built, so it shares the same flue with the fireplace below. When the house was built in 1871, it would have been all outdoor plumbing, but we think that when the Hormels moved in, by that time there's probably running water inside, and certainly they would have installed it if it wasn't already here. Yeah, so this is Jay's room where he slept as a child. Kind of original hardwood. People really like to see is the sleeping porch. They took off layers and layers of wallpaper and layers of carpet and restored everything as much as possible. Of course, we don't have a lot of family furniture, family artifacts, because when they left, they knew it was going to be a Y, so they took a lot with them. But we have a few things, and some things have trickled back over the years. That's our story. You know, since the early 90s, we've been the Hormel Historic Home. George and Lillian were married for 54 years and then died 6 weeks apart. She died in March and then he died in June. Both of them had funerals here in Austin, here at this house, and then were buried in Austin in Oakwood Cemetery.
That's it for now. But join us again next week for Off 90. Meanwhile, let us know what you think and tell us about any interesting people, places, or stories that you want to see here in the coming weeks. Then watch for the KSMQ crew out there, around your town, in our communities, along the back roads. Wherever arts, culture, and history can be found in southern Minnesota, that's where we'll be. But you can be sure we'll always be Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.